Hey all, here is our next challenge for course 2, and I'm not totally confident in my results, and I think that some of you may way outdo me, but here is my example to show you. And the challenge is to make it look like there are two walls. Here's my first wall, and there's another wall with this hallway going down over here. And I think what I could have done to make mine better would be to add some things leaning up against the wall. Maybe a chair on the floor here in front of the wall, or a chair or something right here, a vase, but I was working within the confines of this mini kit that we're getting ready to give away, and not trying to add anything else but what was in the kit. So I really didn't want to go looking into other kits in order to do that. And so this is my attempt, and we'll see what you do. I'm confident there's going to be somebody else that might be able to shine this way better than me, and that's my challenge for you. I'm not sure I'm the best to teach on artistic angles either. I'm not really gifted at that, but you might want to go out there and take a picture of a wall with another wall behind it and a hallway, and then maybe observe it. You might see something else that might help you, or maybe you can find one on the internet and observe it to tweak yours even more than I've tweaked mine. Looking at the angles, of course I am in 8.5 by 11 because that's what I'm doing this book in, of my photos of Hawaii, and you may be most likely doing this in 12 by 12, and so that might even change your dimensions a little bit more than mine. Maybe that might make it easier. And so basically I'm just going to show you a few tips and show you rather than starting over from the beginning. I have my background here, just I thought it looked like a carpeting. You might be able to make this even more realistic by choosing, instead of the green for the walls, a brick, something that has lines in it, because the lines are going to also, when you skew them, make it a little bit more perspective, and give it a little bit more reality. Also, the things you put on the wall make it a little bit more realistic. I had to use what was in this one kit that I was trying to stay within. The thankful giveaway that Blog Hop that we're doing this year in 2012. And so basically what I did was I took a let's just dissect this a little bit by getting rid of some of this. I believe I started with, I need that frame. I started with the front wall, so I'm going to get rid of all this back stuff. I started with this front wall, and it is here. I just made a simple square. It's not a square now, but I cut the paper into a square. And let's see, get rid of that for now, and get rid of that for now. And I started with a square. I didn't realize this was down here, but that comes from my bevel that I added later. But I started with a square, and then I put my photo and my frame on it. So I started with these 3 layers. And then what I did from there was to link them all together, which you should know how to do that by now. Here's the chain. I select them all and do a chain, and then hit Control T on my keyboard, and that brings up the transform tool, and I'm going to select this skew up here and activate it. And now just grab the corners and skew this. See how you can move it? I still got my shadow showing back there as an active layer. So Control T, skew. You can also hold down the Control key and skew it. But you can see I could have made my wall really long. But in this way you're changing the perspective of the wall, the photo, and the frame at the same time. If you want to go ahead and put the things on your wall, if you have other plaques, a clock, whatever you're going to be putting on your wall before you skew it, that might be a good idea. You can always skew the other things again later, but that would ensure everything has the same perspective. And so I can skew it however I want. You can see here's the original square, and so I'm going to simply not accept that change and go back to what I ended up with. So that's how you do that. And then I made a drop shadow layer, and I'm not sure if this was all that necessary, but if you go back to the movable shadow tutorial, I'm not going to teach you how to do all of these things again, but if you go back to the movable shadow and put this drop shadow on its own layer, and then I slightly moved it so that I could only see the shadow just a little bit here on the edge. I ended up going back, trying to make things realistic, and I just took a small strip at the bottom and I applied, I think I tried to stay within Photoshop Elements, and I believe I applied a glass button style to it, and then I lowered the I was making a baseboard, so you can make it however you want, but I lowered the size of the bevel and made some changes, and I also lowered the opacity down to 50%. But whatever works, whatever makes things look realistic. And then as I was looking at the wall, this wall, trying to tweak it some down the road, I was troubled that this did not look like it was rounded, kind of a rounded corner wall, thinking that would help. And so I actually took the burn tool and I burned the edge here very slightly. I lowered my exposure to 20%, and then that still didn't quite work, and so I actually went back and added a bevel for a simple inner bevel, and then I played with those settings until I got this effect. So that's what I did to this wall. You can play with it and see what you can do to make yours the most realistic. And so then I needed to make my other wall in the background, so I started with another square, and I started with another photo and another frame, and I followed the same thing that I did with the last one. I took and I put all of the layers, highlighted them, and chained them together, and then Control T, and I hit the skew button. I moved that there somehow, and then I just kept moving it. You can see here is my original square. I've since moved the you can see this isn't straight. I've since resized it, tried to tweak it, but you can make your hallway however you want. This, it could get really long and weird if you wanted to. but I'm not going to accept my changes and go back to what I had. So then I went ahead and made my baseboard the same as I made it with the other one. And so that's basically it, except for the shadow. Now, if I'm imagining that this is a hallway, I'm going to also have a wall going down the other side here. And so if the lighting is playing off of things, then I'm going to have a shadow on the floor. And so that's where this layer comes in. And you can see that really helps to drastically make it a lot more realistic. I made this layer simply by, I'm going to send you back to that movable drop shadow lesson that you did a long time ago. I actually made the layer, made it on its own layer. If you're in Photoshop, the full version of Photoshop, I think you can go up to layer, then down here there's a layer style, and then under here there is a create layer, and that'll put your drop shadow on its own layer. But go back to the movable drop shadow lesson if you're in Photoshop Elements, and make one of those layers with your wall, and then just keep adjusting it until you put it in here. I actually put it on multiply and lowered the opacity all the way down to 25% even after I put it on its own layer. And so you just keep tweaking it and get it right there in the right spot so it looks like there's a shadow going down the hallway. And that's going to change depending on what angles you choose for your wall. And then just go at it and start adding, other things to your wall. And I just chose some things from my kit, and I wanted to add some things over here, but I couldn't think of anything else. So I think what you add and put on the walls is going to add to it to make it more realistic. So there you have it, and I look forward to seeing what you do with it.